Hey guys! I decided to do my critical analysis on the award-winning HBO series Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is based on a series of books by George R.R. Martin called A Song of Ice and Fire, and the first episode aired in April of 2011. The most recent, or the upcoming final season of the show will be airing in April of 2019. A lot of people are looking forward to it, including myself. The purpose of this analysis was to critically examine Game of Thrones as a whole for its aspects of narrative, characters, organization, casting, demographics, and the societal impact of the show itself. Game of Thrones is set on the fictional continent of Westeros, and the main premise is that a lot of different families think that they should be the rightful rulers of Westeros. However, there are also many different subplots throughout the show as well. The show delves into a lot of family drama, politics, promiscuity, and violence. There are many different families, main characters, and not so important characters in the show, but each character is very highly developed, and it is easy to get confused if you haven't seen every episode of the show, which is why it was so important to be able to finish the entire series before writing this analysis. Game of Thrones was created by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. It is produced by HBO, as stated before. The author of the books that the series is based on is George R.R. Martin, who is also a writer for the series. Each episode has an average runtime of 57 minutes, and because it airs on HBO, there are no commercials in each episode. Each episode does begin with a recap from the previous episodes and seasons, trying to help the viewer remember what exactly happened because there's a lot that goes on. In each episode, the plot is left open for a cliffhanger for the next episode, and at the end of the episode, after the credits roll, with background music showing the actors, producers, and directors for that episode, there's usually either a preview for the next episode or a recap of the previous episode with commentary from directors and actors in the show. Many different locations were used on the set for filming, such as Croatia, Morocco, Spain, Ireland, Scotland, and Iceland. Depending on where the story is taking place, the colors and lighting of the show vary. For instance, in the northernmost city of Winterfell, the colors and lighting are very dark, whereas in King's Landing, where the ruler sits on the throne, colors are much brighter, and so is the lighting. The conventions of the characters also depend on the settings and where they are. The objects, furniture, clothing, and architecture are all incredibly intricate and detailed, consistent with the time period to match what's going on with the rest of the show. In the background, the sounds that you hear are ambient noises, chatter from the streets, and background music. There are also many different types of shots in each episode, such as close-ups, medium shots, and long shots. The casting for the different characters in Game of Thrones is one of the greatest qualities of the show, which has a lot to do with the fact that George R.R. Martin, the author of the books, was a part of choosing the different characters and the actors who would play each character. The descriptions of the characters in the books were carried out very well by the hiring directors and creators of the show. The demographics and representation portrayed in the show depends on which kingdom the show in each episode is taking place. Social class is also an important characteristic of the show itself, as the main premise focuses around who deserves to be considered royalty. Men are treated as the dominant gender by far, with gender roles similar to that of hundreds of years ago in Europe. However, in reference to what demographics the show targets, it would be towards adults, young or older, but there is a pretty even spread of male and female viewers. There is no product placement or advertisement specific within the show. Game of Thrones mirrors many of the issues seen in the world today, such as political scandals and leaders not being trusted. Gender roles in the show have had a societal impact, as many women were offended by the objectification and misogyny throughout the show of women. Sexuality of men is also a huge topic in the series, and female nudity is shown in almost every episode. Some people have gone so far as to refuse to watch the show because of the amount of sex and nudity. However, some people love it. Politics is another topic that is central to Game of Thrones, as many of the tactics used by the leaders can be compared to the leaders of our world today. International relations strategies and tactics are also portrayed in the series, but should not be used in the world today, as many of the tactics could be seen as offensive to other countries. In order to analyze Game of Thrones, as I said earlier, watching the whole series and many episodes over and over again was necessary. All of the characters are very highly developed, and it is easy to see where every type of person could find someone to relate to within the series. There are many different personal values, morals, and religious beliefs called into question by different characters throughout the show. The intention of the program is not necessarily to inform or persuade, but rather just to entertain, although an argument could be made for either. As stated, class status is a major part of the narrative, and being a male rather than female is useful to the characters, as well as due to the different gender roles and expectations of the time period in the show. The program continuously makes the viewer relate to, empathize with, and feel disdain for many of the characters, and in some episodes, viewers feel all these different emotions towards the same character in the same episode. The characters are so complex, it makes it difficult for a viewer to pick favorites. There are certain characters, such as Daenerys Targaryen, who is a female character, who is shown to overcome many obstacles, such as sexism and abuse, and she ends up leading a group of people called the Dothraki. Tyrion Lannister also is a character that is shown that falls in love with a prostitute, and whereas before characters maybe treated prostitutes differently and not as much as human beings, but Tyrion changes a lot of people's minds with that and actually falls in love with the prostitute himself. In conclusion, Game of Thrones is a very in-depth fantasy, drama, adventure, action show that has gained incredible popularity over the years that it has been on television. As a show with many different plots, subplots, characters, settings, and cultural conventions, it will be a show that is analyzed for years to come.